Hello, everyone. Welcome to the wire. Welcome to the wire. It's coming down to the wire, isn't it? For many of you, because you can see a line of sight to the days when you're going to have your on-site assessment. So today's talking with you about ways to reduce the stress of that. Because you mentioned accreditation. It has an effect on people, doesn't it? Accreditation. You can feel people going, oh. Right, so today we're going to demystify some of that and give you the best chance of success. And when you're terribly, terribly stressed, you never, ever perform at your best, I find. So I'm going to see what we can do about reducing some of the stress around this. So thanks for joining us. Thanks for watching. What I'd like to do is just acknowledge that I am on beautiful Biripi country here today in Taree, and I feel like this is the water. I could show you outside the window at the big Manning River at the moment. I am house sitting, and how's this for a sort of a first world problem? The people whose house I am house sitting, their boat is sinking. I'm thinking about, all the people who are suffering. I'm thinking, should I really be worried about that boat? I don't know. What can I do anyway? I can't go out there and pull it in. Anyway, these are the first world sorts of problems that we have up here on the mid-north coast where we are getting flooded out. But I'm thinking about Sydney people such as Kylie who have also had a terrible, terrible couple of weeks. And how are you faring in Nelson Bay there, Jill?
We're not faring too badly. Nelson Bay Road is flooded, so it's a bit difficult to get into the bay because I'm outside, and also getting down to Sydney is a bit of a struggle because Madawi Road and Tomago Road are both flooded, which are main exits onto the Pacific Highway.
Yes, so we're just...
But houses and everything seem to be okay, which is important.
That is important, and I'm glad to hear that. So just hoping everyone who's watching and people who are not here, probably the reason you're not here is because you're trying to manage some other stressful things. So just thinking about lots of people who are finding it tough this week, this year, all of that. And I was in the middle of actually doing a proper acknowledgement of this beautiful country and all the beautiful places where you are, and the First Nations traditional custodians of those lands that you're on, and to acknowledge the diversity of Aboriginal cultures across all the lands that we're on. And yes, pay our respects to elders past, present, emerging, particularly in this week, which is NAIDOC week. All right, so we're thinking a lot about things like closing the gap and native title and constitutional recognition, all those things there. So thank you very much for joining me. We have got Sean here, and Sean is able to talk to us about the real experience of having an on-site assessment. So, I might just invite Sean in a moment just to say, what was it like? Like, what were you expecting it to be like, and what was it really like? And Jill also has an experience as a board member on the board of an organisation that recently had their accreditation assessment as well. So why don't we hear from those two people about what was it like?
Yeah. Well, look, I think we went into it thinking the worst, that it was going to be a massively stressful few days. But it wasn't. And I think the reason for that was maybe because we were expecting it to be bad, it might be. But at the end of the day, I think it is what you make of it to a certain extent. Like if you're going with a view that not everything in your world's going to be perfect, because it never is anyway, then really it's just about listening and taking on board the suggestions and the recommendations, and which is sort of what we did. We did prepare very thoroughly. Like all of the staff were very much on board with why we were doing this and whatnot. We did have more trouble getting our board of management to realise the importance of it, but once they did, then they engaged in the process. And I think in the end, the board were actually more nervous than the staff. And I think that's because they probably could have been engaged more earlier, and they were worried about the fact they hadn't, and that they were going to be at a disadvantage. But as it turned out, it was fine. And Jill was very accommodating. She had a good understanding, obviously, of what community centres do, which was handy. So we weren't continuing explaining, well, we do this because she knows. So that was helpful too. So I think I suppose the only thing I would say is going with the mindset of wanting to learn and be prepared to listen to the suggestions, and you're fine.
Yeah.
Don't go in with wanting to explain things away, I suppose, is
Yeah, that's really sound advice, actually. I like what you said at the end there. Like going with the right kind of a mindset, not the mindset that you have to, keep pushing back or, trying to explain things away, which is, rather than facing up and owning it and saying, well, yeah, we created it like that because of that, and it's been working okay for us, and taking on board some improvements. So, yeah. And it's your story, it's your centre, it's your processes and systems that you set up. So, we can feel quite protective of those sometimes. That's why we get a little bit of that sort of, maybe not resistance, but just what you said there. Thank you, Sean.
That's all right.
Just welcoming Deborah there. Hello, Deborah. Nice to see you today. And Jill, what about your experience? You're on the board of a big organisation. You don't have to say which one if you don't want to, but your board experience is really insightful.
It's a large organisation that does basically has services from childcare right through to aged care and everything in between. So our services for homelessness and went through accreditation, and I was online with another board member to talk to the two assessors. They were very approachable. They certainly were very friendly and engaging, but their focus was really on that the board knew what the mission and values of the organisation were and how that translated into the way services are delivered. And they were also quite strong on wanting to know how the board communicates with the staff and how the staff communicates back to the board. So, I suppose we spoke to them for about half an hour, but that was their focus. But I think Sean, is about knowing what the organisation does and being confident that it's your story and that it's the way you meet the needs of your clientele.
Yeah.
But it was certainly, and generally for the organisation, it was a very positive experience.
Oh, that's so good to hear.
Yeah.
And I think we lose sight sometimes of what accreditation is all about. And it is all about meeting the needs of our clientele, as Jill just said, the needs of our community. And so everything, if you start there and you come back through the framework, you see every single indicator, all 98 of them, really do support that outcome or that impact for the client, for the community. So, that's the sort of story to get ready to tell. And so today we just wanted to talk to you about, we'll talk with you and hear from you, some of the things that you might be able to do to prepare. And you've already gotten a good start there from Sean and from Jill. They're very, very recent accreditation experience, and I appreciate it. And we've got Bron and Kylie here who work on our team as assessors. So they'll be able to talk about what they can do. What can they do? What can they have on their face? What can they have in their head that's going to be helpful to you to reduce some of the stress around this sort of 2, 3, might even be 4 days. Imagine 4 days. Recently did a 4-dayer. Oh, yeah. That's awful having this as there for 4 days. You can be thankful, you little services that have 2 days. So, let's kick on. Let's see what we can squeeze out of this hour together. And you know what I'm thinking, and I just wanted to get people's okay with this. I'm thinking about the opportunity to share this video with some service excellence organisations who are in the process of considering going for service excellence. Some people are kind of whipped into it. In New South Wales, we're a bit whipped into it, aren't we, Deborah? But there are other organisations that voluntarily sort of think about this as an opportunity for their organisation. I'm wondering if this 1 hour recording might be something that could be helpful for them. Have a think on whether you could give your permission for that kind of sharing. It's up to you. If you want to turn your camera off now, go, oh no, it's all right. I won't do it if you're not comfortable, but I think it's good intel, isn't it? Okay. Here we go. Here we go. Well, sometimes I like PowerPoint, sometimes I don't, but I think it gives you a rest from my face. So here we go. Stressed about accreditation? Anyone? 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 Feeling a bit like that? Oh, yes, you could be. So what is it that creates the stress in accreditation? What is it that actually makes it stressful? Any ideas? All of you, even you assessors, what do you think makes it stressful, accreditation?
I think it's the unknown.
Okay, so we don't know what the outcome's going to be. We think we're going to do okay. We're not sure. Good. What else? What else makes it stressful?
I think there are some really negative connotations about accreditation and assessment, and I think it's really shifted over the years to now be more about sort of growth and development. And as you said, it's really about the community and the clients. And so that's what we're all going to work for every day. That's why we're here. I think that shift is really nice, but until you go through the process, it's not really that evident.
No, that's right.
How is all of this about improving what we do for our clients, stakeholders, and communities? So I think that shift is just not well known enough, but the ACES process, I think, really helps understand that. And it's a bit of a shift in the way things are done.
Yeah, I'm feeling that movement too. I think I used to feel from organisations a lot of pushback about, oh, the government's making us do this, like it's another hoop we have to jump through and we're too busy for this crap. I used to get quite a lot of that. And now I am seeing that. I'm seeing that shift that Kylie's talking about there, that, oh, this could be good for us. A little bit. I'm seeing that. What else makes it stressful, anyone?
I think one of the things I've picked up is that it's hard for people to be in the moment during the process because there's all that other stuff, all that kind of noise from the day-to-day. And I think that's one of the big challenges, is kind of get a focus and maintain a focus for a good period of time. So I think that causes stress.
Yes, definitely. And oftentimes the 2 days that the assessor's on site is the culmination of a lot of, hard work. That's quite exhausting, particularly, I'm going to say, for our smaller services. Not unique to them, but for the smaller services, it might be under-resourced. And so it's almost like, that the cumulative effect of that kind of, long haul, and then we're finally here, can feel quite overwhelming. That the end of this is sort of the 2 days where the assessors are here. It's kind of like, oh gosh, this is hard. I've seen people get shaky and teary, and I'll share a funny story with you about, stress in action in a minute. But hearing from anyone else about what makes it stressful. Anyone?
I think sometimes you tend to pick up other people's view. Like you might speak to someone from another organisation that's recently had an assessment, and they pick up on their sort of angst about the whole thing.
Yeah.
Which is possible. So I think I don't know, you just got to try and put that aside. But yeah, that's an easy one to fall into.
Perspectives. Mm-hmm.
And everybody's stress can compound, can't it? I think that I'm working with an organisation at the moment. I've had to have a couple of those conversations to say, the word assessment and accreditation is a bit triggering for people, and you can't take on everyone else's kind of stress. Everyone's just got to get focused and support one another and stay united, work together. The work that everyone's doing is exceptional in this sector. Let's do this together. I think there can be a little bit of finger pointing can come out at times like this.
Yeah.
what we're not doing rather than what we are doing really well. Really
That's
taking
right.
time to acknowledge what are we doing well, what our organisation's doing well, and everyone's doing exceptional work. But yeah, what can we do? Yeah, what can we do better?
Yes.
Being
Yes.
open to that.
Well, I don't know. I think it's a bit of a throwback from, I don't know, how were you at school when there are exams or tests, you
Mm.
know? I don't know. I think it stems back to there. And the fear of, not doing well, because in those days, I know I don't look this old, but when I was at school, there was corporal punishment. Like you got a whack if you didn't do well. Some people got things thrown at them if they got if they spelt a word wrong. So this sort of testing condition, I think we've carried it, with us. No, I don't meet anyone who says, "Yay, bring it on! I want to have an assessment." No, in any assessment scenario, I never see people thinking, "Yeah, I really want to have my assessment now." Mm-mm. Yeah, so it's a sort of natural, normal thing. And often, and what people would tell you, like psychologists would tell you that, stress is around because it matters. Like to do well matters, and that brings with it this kind of, the stress of the importance of it. Okay, so yes, everybody wants to do well in accreditation. It means a lot for the organisation that's worked hard to get where they are and is going to have all of their good practice validated, but also because it's attached to funding and reputation. Okay, so, it means a lot. And so there's that sort of, that stress, that the release of cortisol, the stress hormone, it gets into the brain. And when it gets into the brain, it can stop the brain from doing its very best kind of, thinking. So we get a bit nuts around this time as well. Speaking of nuts, how's this? I had an assessment team. It was a big 4-day assessment. It was a massive organisation across a really big region. And the quality lead had just worked so hard, for months and months. And it meant a lot to her that the organisation do well. This is their first cycle of accreditation. And so she had the assessors in her vehicle and she's taking them from site to site to site during the day. And of course, then the day comes to an end and they're all in the car together and driving and talking about the day. Oh, and having a pretty good time. Coming back to the organisation, to finish the day off. Also, they thought. And that assessor actually drove my assessors home to her hometown instead of the town where she was supposed to bring my assessors back to, which is really quite a shock because I'm sitting back there at the organisation going, wonder when they're going to be back. I thought they'd be back like an hour ago, thinking. And so I rang and embarrassingly, the quality lead said, "Oh, I'm just so embarrassed, but we're on our way back now." But I drove them to Shepparton instead of back to Mildura. She was just on autopilot. She was just feeling so good. The day was kind of over, and she's they're all in the groove, chatty, chat. Oh, they're in the wrong town. They didn't lose any points for that, by the way. They did very, very well. They over prepared, if there's such a thing. So, yes, there you go. There's always a lot of stress around, a lot of people stressed around accreditation. But let's see if we can take it from this to this. Oh, wouldn't it be good if you could sort of feel like that? You could feel so good about it all. My friends in the room today, what do you see here? Just tell me what you see on the screen here.
Heart.
You can see a heart, yes.
And a hand.
Fantastic.
Head.
There we go. We've got the mind, the hands, and the heart. And what I want to say is to be across this whole kind of, thing about stressing out about your accreditation, your on-site accreditation visit, I think it's in the way that we think. So we've already started saying today, a few of you have said mindset. So it's in the way that we think. So that's the head part. It's in the way that we feel. So that's the heart part. Like how can we manage our emotional state? And it's in what we do. So that's the hands part. And so, both for the assessor and for the organisation, we can have a look at this. We have a look because you will find often the assessor is feeling a very similar sort of set of emotions as what you might be feeling. We want it to go well as well. It's important for us that it go well also. So I think this is worth thinking about, and even to be talking with your team about, right? It does sort of level the playing field a little bit, but, you know, thinking comes before doing. So if we can get our thinking right, you know, it often influences, well, we know that it does influence the way that we feel and how we act or how we behave, or, you know, what comes out of us on the day. So, you know, to speak from the assessor perspective, and I'd love to hear from Bron and Kylie on this, you know, what we're thinking, our mindset is one of learning. We come to your organisation with a great opportunity to learn more about how organisations tick. So we very much come with a learning mindset. You know, we very much come with a continuous quality improvement mindset. You know, we are looking from the minute we get out of our vehicle, you know, we are looking for opportunities to share back with you some of the things that we're seeing that could be improvements. Like we absolutely have our sort of, you know, CQI goggles on. You might think we have our auditor goggles on and we're looking around for things that are sort of, you know, not right, but we don't. We actually have our goggles on that are looking for strengths and looking for opportunities for improvement more than anything. You know, and we're definitely thinking about ways to help it to be stress less, ways for you to feel confident and to feel like the leaders of the process, right? So we're definitely coming with that mindset. And we are feeling nervous. You know, I'm often feeling nervous for the organisation because I can see, you know, that little bit of shakiness when I come, you know, first to let's say I come to your sort of front area or your front reception, I see, oh, you know, people, and so I'm feeling nervous, you know, and I'm feeling excited because often this is the culmination of lots of planning that we've done with your organisation. So I feel as an assessor when I get to this day quite happy and excited as well. And look, lots of the things that I'm doing is, and you'll find this across all of our assessors, we bring the small talk, you know, like we want to build rapport and engagement really gently. You know, we want to, you just have a laugh, you know, we want to just gently meet people in your organization there. You know, we want to walk around. That walk around that we do when we first get there, it's not any kind of inspection. It's just a sort of orientating ourselves with your environment and with the people who are in your environment, you know. So you will see us smiling and you will see us being very friendly at that stage. And that's super important that we do that. And those of you who've had your assessment, oh, sorry, I'd love to hear from Kylie or Bron on that, you know, anything that the assessor's sort of thinking, feeling or doing there, you know, to make it all stress less, to make it go smoothly. Be good to hear from you if there's anything particularly you're mindful of doing in your practice.
I suppose one of the things for me is I'm always conscious to suspend any kind of preconceived ideas, because you know you can think you know about or know an organisation, but it's really important to be present in the moment, a bit the same as, you know, preparing. Just being aware of what's happening at the moment and not having any preconceived ideas or any prejudgments about anything, I think is really important.
Thank you. That's great. Kylie?
Yeah, I love that, Bron. I think you're absolutely right. You become really quite like engrossed, I guess, in the organisation. You spend a lot of time looking at their documentation, understanding what they do, who they're working with, what their goals are. And so when you get in there to do the assessment, you really just want to find out more about all the great stuff that they're doing. Yeah, and this is what we do for work. So we want to enjoy it too. So we want to make it as enjoyable as possible, that time that we spend. We like to call them conversations, not interviews. You know, it's the difference in language really defines the approach that we take. You know, we're just having conversations about, you know, with people about their roles. You know, there's no right or wrong. We're not red penning. just looking for opportunities and the strength-based stuff, identifying what you're doing really, really well and capitalizing on that. You know, and always sharing little tidbits between organisations. When we find an organisation doing something exceptional, you know, sharing this great practice, you know, I find that we're that little network that gets to share the good stuff between organisations and, you know, opportunities for improvements. And that sharing is so powerful, I think, for this sector.
Yeah, thank you, Kylie. And what about you? I'm interested in sort of the emotional state. If you can connect with that, Sean and Jill, connect with how you were feeling on the day of the assessment that you're involved in. Like, what's the emotional state that you can connect with there?
Yeah, I think you just, I don't know, I was probably overthinking little things like, you know, the mannerism of the assessor and whether she nodded or whatnot when we answered certain questions, things like that. So I was probably focusing on that sort of body language and yeah, to start with, I'd say, because you are going through your head, you know, how are they responding to what you've done, all this work that you've done. But I think that sort of gradually washes away a bit as you get into the process. So it felt like it did for me. It felt like I wasn't, by day 2 and whatnot, I'd stop worrying about it. Yep. I just figured, well, the everything here will just do the talking for it. I don't need to worry about it. And yeah, so it just sort of ebbed away, I suppose.
Yeah, letting your evidence do the talking, that's a good tip. And Jill, you've been involved in lots of assessments over your leadership career. What's the range of emotional states you found yourself in?
I think there's been times when you felt very nervous and having to prove yourself the whole time.
Yeah.
And that's often, I think, you know, due to the body language and the way people ask questions. You know, they seem to fire questions at you and at a great speed. And whereas with the ACES accreditation, the approach was very relaxed, and actually the number of questions he asked was few. He just allowed you, they were so open, you could go on talking forever. So, you know, I found that rather than, you know, initial, and I think the point you made too, and this has happened to me mainly with aged care accreditation, is that people are going around as a walk around, which you do all the time, but they're looking for where can they find faults. You feel all the time, you know, is there going to be something in front of the fire door? Is there going to be, you know, you're really anxious that your staff have got things right. Yeah.
Yes, and I have worked with those kinds of assessors, and if I have a look at the left-hand side here now, and I think it's the thinking that sets up the behaviour. Like, that's just my belief. You thinking before doing, so your thinking informs how you're going to behave. I know that those types of assessors are thinking that they are the gatekeeper for their industry. Yeah. So I've worked with, let's say, directors of nursing who then become assessors. And we will be doing assessments in the health sector, in a health service. And they are thinking, well, you know, you got to get past me before you're going to get the tech here, you know. And they're really thinking they're thinking that way. Therefore, they are looking for the errors. They're looking for the mistakes. You know, whereas if they were thinking, oh, wow, you know, look at this health service here trying to do the very best they can. Look at all the improvements, you know, that they're trying to implement, even if they're only half implemented, half of them, you know. So it's the difference in the thinking, which we would probably call a mindset. Yeah. And where there's a lot of risk around, like financial auditors, because there's such a lot of risk for an organisation around financial performance and all the must-dos there, they tend to have that kind of lens as well. So the risk lens, it can feel a little bit more scary for that reason, I think, because of the level of importance there. Yeah. Thank you, everyone, for your contributions. So look, there's a lot that we can do for you as your assessor. And even, if you're watching this and we are not your assessor, this is what you should expect from your assessor. And this is what you could ask for. We really work hard at getting the balance between friendly and professional right. Because we know, look, what is our job as an assessor? It is to gather evidence. And the evidence tells us a story about your compliance with these 98 requirements. Now, if you are locked up with stress, you are not talking, right? You are not giving us the evidence that we might like to have. When you're relaxed, off you go, and we get lots of evidence. So we try really, really hard to put people at ease, because we know that it's that people do better, when they're telling their story, or when they're telling us about compliance, or when they're helping us to find certain things that we need to see. They do a lot better when they're relaxed. We like to be open. So you will find us sharing all of the questions with you. You will find us sharing all of the audit tools and checklists that we use, because we want you to do well. We want you to not have the stress of wondering, oh, what are they going to ask us? Or what are they going to want to look at? All right. We want to be efficient, effective with you, and we want you to be able to tell us and show us as easily as possible. So we will give you everything we won't give you the answers. That's for you to come up with, but we'll give you everything else, all right, to make it easy. So we'll be very open. We like to engage early so we can build a relationship. And when we've got a good relationship, doesn't that make it so much easier? When you sort of have gotten to know the person and build a bit of trust, or, we've got a good sense of each other's sort of, feelings and thoughts about accreditation. We will give you lots and lots of feedback. We're going to give you feedback beforehand on your evidence, so you can be sure that your evidence is telling the very best story. But we're going to give you lots of feedback whilst we're on site as well. So we are going to do that through simple things like, thanking you and telling you that was a really good answer to that question. That's exactly what we're looking for. You'll hear us say things like that all the time. And we want to not be so concerned with our note taking as to not have eye contact with you and be smiling and nodding and going, yeah, really good. That's awesome. So we want that to be a form of feedback, but we'll also give you feedback at the end of each day. And so, any themes that we're seeing, any potential gaps that we're seeing, where we've identified some strengths and some general thoughts about how we're feeling it's going, right? So you'll be able to share yours with us as well. We want to have information sessions for you to do lots and lots of Q&A with you and your team and you and your board. Anyone who's interested to, just answer the questions and concerns that people might have. We will have a pre-assessment meeting with you. It's quite a long checklist, but it's lots of the things that we'll talk about before we come on site that makes it go really well on site. So, Sean, hopefully you can recall having that pre-assessment meeting where we actually sort of visualize, I think, before we get there, how it's kind of going to go. We're going to, one of the resources I've got for you today is our pre-assessment checklist, so you can sort of see sorts of things we might talk about before we come on site. Like, can we please have an extension cord and a double adapter? Those are important things. And herbal tea. Those are important things. So everybody's going to get their needs met. I promise you. We will share our stories, and we'll be looking for exemplars. Like we're shameless in the way that we share things that we've seen that work really well in our sector. So if we are looking for amazing ways of doing things, if you're doing great things in terms of innovation and creativity and meeting your community's needs in different ways, then those stories we'll share back with you in your report. We'll commend them, but we can also use those examples with other organisations. Other organisations' examples we'll share back with you in your report when we have an opportunity to write up all the continuous quality improvement. But when you're bringing your evidence to life, what we want is for you to be able to tell the stories, about what's working. That's on the next slide. But anyway, we're offering you also connection and collaboration through things like being on the wire, And if you did want to talk to someone else a little bit like you who's been through it, we could probably connect you up. All right, so that's a bit what we do. And look at all the things here that you can do. And I was so very happy to hear from Jill and Sean, you know, talk about the sorts of things they did to reduce some of the stress. And I think I heard some of these things here. A growth mindset, you know, a learning mindset, a CQI mindset. Those would be two of the pretty important sorts of ways of thinking. Thinking about continuous quality improvement, thinking about learning. See this as a learning opportunity more than an accreditation. Framing the language. Kylie gave you a great example there just a minute ago. You know, instead of an interview, we could call it a conversation. You know, instead of, you know, oh, you know, they're going to need to see our evidence or they're going to need to hear our stories. This is validation. You know, sometimes organisations think about accreditation as validation for all their hard work. It's sometimes the first time an external body is coming in and giving this level of feedback about what's working well and improvement opportunities. So, you know, it's a framework. Accreditation is a framework for your good practice. You get to hang all of your good practice on this amazing framework. So that's framing the language very differently to accreditation assessment, isn't it? You and your team, early involvement and engagement. So those of you who have engaged early will probably be feeling the benefits of that. Jill, I want to commend because Jill and her organisation, I feel like, Jill, we're coming up to nearly 2 years of being engaged now. Is that true?
Yes, it is, I think. Yeah, yes. COVID got in the way.
Not for us. It's just
No.
made it a lovely long relationship. Oh,
Absolutely. Yeah.
So early, and that's true for a lot of the organisations and people who will be watching the recordings. I can think of a number of organisations who've been engaged with us for longer than a year. Right? So that's something that really makes a difference to the success of the on-site assessment. Having your evidence ready. You know, when we come on site, we see things like registers, like live kinds of things that you couldn't really upload to the portal or, you know, send us along as a document. So, you know, by that I mean you might be going to show us your incident and accident near miss register, or you're going to show us your client records management system. You know, have a person ready who's a kind of, you know, superhero when it comes to that system, ready to show us. I can, a lot of times what's happened is we've tried to see the things that we need to see in the HR sort of file, and it'll be kept in different places on different systems, and it can take a really long time to see the things we need to see. So, you know, having a bit of thought about, well, we will have told you what we need to see. We'll give you our list of the things that we're ticking. So you could have those things ready. And that just takes a lot of the stress out of it. There's nothing worse than a person having to sit next to an assessor and the assessor saying, okay, now could you show me where you've got the consent? And they're like, you know, and so, it can be so hard to perform under those conditions. So I just say, have it ready, have it there so you can kind of, you know, find it easily. The interviewees should be prepared if they're going to participate, which is fabulous and feels courageous for people who say, okay, I'll be part of the interview, because remember how they're probably feeling. But we're going to give you all of the questions that we're going to ask, and it's unlikely that we would deviate because we really shouldn't be asking anything outside of what those indicators in the framework are, you know, are indicating as the criteria to meet the particular standard. So we really shouldn't be deviating from that. So you're very, very welcome to share with the interviewees the questions that we will be asking. Have them, encourage them to think about stories that bring the framework to life, like stories that tell us about the systems that are really working well, or system improvements that you've made over the last sort of period, or something you're particularly proud of as a program that meets a community or a client need, or some way that you've been innovative. So all these things, you know, bring it to life, you know, bring the evidence to life. So it's more than documents. A lot of people think accreditation is, oh, the assessors are coming and they want to look at documents and they've got a list of questions, but it's, you know, it's sort of colouring it in for us. You know, that's what you can do. And when it's about telling stories and when people get to talk about things they're particularly proud of, you know, you can see some of the stress kind of fade away. All right. And we love that. We really love to hear those stories. So how's that feeling now? How's that feeling? Is that okay? Is that all right?
Yeah.
Tell you what, I've got some really helpful resources for you this month. You want to see open? This is how open we're being. All right, this is what you're getting. If you want to check yourself before you wreck yourself, what I mean by that is if you want to do the little audits that we're going to do before we come, we're giving you our client file audit checklist, right? All the things that we're going to want to see when we have a look through the client files. We're giving you our interview themes. So all the questions that you will likely be asked. Now, just remember, where you see a list of maybe 15 questions, we might not ask all those questions. That was Jill's experience, because we sometimes get the answers to questions on there in other ways, like through other documents. So, you know, we might only ask you 8 or 9 of those 15 questions. We're giving you our employee file audit checklist. So all the things that we're going to want to see in employee files or wherever you keep them. We're going to give you our checklist so you can do a little audit before we come. We're going to give you our site inspection tool that we use when we walk around. All the things that we're going to want to see when we do our official site audit. We're going to give you that tool that we use. And we're going to give you the list of things that we'll talk about in the pre-assessment meeting, just so you can sort of see the sorts of themes there about what we try to do to iron out any of the creases that might be there when we come on site for those few days. Questions, comments?
I think that's going to be really helpful, actually. You know, yeah.
Good. Well, team, small team that we've got today, what do you think about sharing this with not just our sort of current high wire service excellence clients, but those that might be considering coming over to service excellence? What do you think? Is that all right if I sort of ask the industry partners, ask the peaks, you know, if they'd like to share this little one? How do people feel about that?
Yeah, I think it'll be all right for them. Yeah.
That's all right.
Yeah.
Deborah, I've got get a thumbs up or something from you if that's
Oh,
okay.
yes.
Thank
Yeah, I'm
you,
sorry.
Deborah.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Haven't had my camera on. I can't figure out how to turn my camera on. So, and I'm sorry about that.
No, that's okay. It's lovely to have you here. I just accidentally muted you, but I was really going to just press that and see if that made any difference to things your end. But yeah. It's just fine not to have your face here if you don't want to. It's just an opportunity. So then on that, if there's no more questions or comments or anything else that people would like to share with, all the people that might be watching this and thinking, oh no, we've got our assessment coming up. But you've been so very generous, all of you. Thank you so much. And I wish you well. I know it's going to go beautifully well. Some of the feedback that we get, you know, just to support the themes that we've been hearing from Sean and Jill today, people have their expectations blown out of the water because, you know, they think they know how it's going to go and, you know, they get all sort of ready for it. And then they say, oh, it was not as bad as we thought. Nowhere near as bad as we thought it was going to be. Oh, that's just such a lovely bit of feedback for us. We love that when we hear that. Wasn't as scary as I thought it was going to be. Yes. All right. That means everybody's done their very best job. And all of our assessors are all super friendly. So, you know, you don't need to worry. If you don't get Kylie or Bron or myself, any other assessor you get is going to have that high wire flavour, right?
Okay.
Everybody wave because it looks so good.
Yeah.
See ya.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.